Hello.
Hi there, how are you?
Good yourself?
Yeah, very good, very good. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh, no problem.
Hello.
Good morning.
Long time no see, Rachel.
Yeah, no kidding. It's been forever.
Be right back.
Good evening.
Hi, Mr. Cartwright. No.
Actually, I just noticed I'm showing up as Carl Cartwright.
You are.
I am not Carl Cartwright.
Okay.
How do I change that?
Oh, you might have joined under his panelist link, but there might be an option to rename yourself in there.
Yeah, look for the three dots
Let
in
me
the
try
upper
that.
right corners.
Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Sorry, I'm just getting my hydration ready for the meeting.
Good. Yeah, I got my dinner here cooling as I speak, and I got the PowerPoint presentation you sent me ready to go in the background.
Perfect. Right. I'm gonna give it another few minutes.
Sure.
Give people time to arrive.
Sounds good. Mhm. Now, Chantel, will you be introducing everybody tonight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just gonna give another few minutes for people to join. And for the counselor to join us. See some familiar names.
I see some familiar names on our attendee list, which is wonderful to see.
Yeah, we've got a good number of our community associations represented there, so that's great.
Wonderful. Hi, Granda.
Do a bit of trouble here.
Where are we going?
Rachel,
Yes.
just texting with Carl. He's just having some technical difficulties and working through those.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Let me know if there's anything I can help with.
Will do. Thank you. It's saying he's already logged in, which is probably me, Rachel,
Oh,
because he sent me the link and I just clicked on the link in the email. Could you forward the link to me and I'll log out? Maybe that'll free him up.
sure.
Hello. No.
Hey, Rick.
All right. I'm still having some dinner here.
It's okay. I think we all are.
Go ahead, eat away, Rick.
Hey,
Hi.
it's lemon quinoa with zucchini.
the front, you're taking a new car, like the rental.
There we go.
We're all.
Oh, are all panelists here? Chantal?
Sorry, I was on mute here. Joining us, does anybody know? Any-
Okay. Kurt Rangers. Now, Acting Sergeant Joseph, will he be attending?
No, he
Um,
won't. No, he will not be attending. It will be me only.
Okay, okay, good to know, thank you. Are you ready to start, Chantal?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Okay, all right, so thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we do want to thank everyone who's able to join us for the crime prevention strategy information session this evening. We had some requests for this, and in light of some recent violent incidents in our ward, we wanted to open this up to all of our residents in College Ward. So thank you for joining us. I want to also thank our panelists for being here from the Ottawa Police Services. We have Constable Kovic, Inspector Cartwright, and sorry, we've also got Ken Bryden as well from the Ottawa Police Services. Sorry, I forget your title, Ken.
Inspector, thank you.
Sorry?
Inspector, thanks.
Inspector, okay, sorry.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're gonna have them speak to you tonight about the crime prevention programs and programs designated towards at-risk youth. Give some information on the neighborhood policing and neighborhood watch programs. And also Inspector Cartwright will be speaking on the gun violence in College Ward and the city of Ottawa. So again, welcome. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to pass the floor to the counselor for a moment before we get started.
Thanks, Chantal. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. We've had a couple of significant incidents over the past little while, including a shooting and a stabbing. And it's caused a number of people at the doors when I've been going, handing out some information newsletters to raise questions about what our strategy is and whether we're actually making any progress. Because most remember 3 years ago, things got really bad citywide. We were setting all sorts of shooting records, and we had some plan to try to reverse that. And lately, we've seen the move to defund the police and to shift money to other envelopes. That is not something I support, and it's we have to fund the police more, I think, in order to handle these incidents. And plus, that's not the way funding of police works. We don't start the day with a table full of money and divide it up to all the different areas. Police design their work, present it to us. As a result, the person who does it is a chief. The chief designs how he's going to do policing for the year, presents the bill to council. Council either agrees and pays the bill or doesn't pay the bill, in which case it gets appealed to a body in Toronto, which can then decide that despite council saying it wasn't going to pay, council must pay. So it isn't a sort of blue sky exercise that starts at the beginning of the budget year. But we can do a lot to make sure there is enough funding for police, and I think we've tried to do that. And now the public wants to know what it is we're doing and whether it's working. So I thought this would be the best way during a pandemic that we could sort of convey that information. So thank you for being here, and thank you for taking part, members of the OPS.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Before we get started in the presentation, I just want to ask everyone to remain respectful, and there will be a chance for questions at the end. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn over the floor. Oh, somebody's asking my position. Sorry, I'm from the Councillor's office. I'm the Director of Strategic Affairs and Communication.
Chantal, did you want to introduce the speaker for the Neighborhood Watch?
I can introduce myself. So I will be presenting here. My name is Bernard Kovic. I'm a constable with the Ottawa Police Service. I'm a temporary at the CPC, so it's a community policing at the West Division. I've been working in as a school resource officer for a number of years. I've been with Ottawa Police for about 15 years. I'm going to present Neighbourhood Watch. It's a program that has been around Ottawa, and with Ottawa Police for many years. So what is Neighbourhood Watch? I know a lot of people asking you questions. We do get a lot of emails asking how to implement the Neighbourhood Watch and how to have one of those. There's a number of Neighbourhood Watch around Ottawa. So I'll start with the options. So next, how I do the next slide? Share. Okay, so the next slide. So Neighbourhood Watch is the community-based, as it says here, community-based crime prevention program offered by the Ottawa Police. It started many years ago in 1979. it's been evolving through Ottawa Police number in the Nepean, Ontario Provincial Police, Ottawa Carleton Police, and now it's currently with Ottawa Police Service. As I said, there's a number of community neighborhood watches around the city and in each division. Next page, please. The objective basically it's to encourage neighbors to come together to watch for crime, to report the crime to the police in their community, to watch for their own interest, to watch for their neighbor, to prevent the crime by reducing opportunities. If, for example, if the people watch their neighbor house, they will be greatly reduce the opportunities for the people to break into those houses. With the number of packages nowadays being stolen because of the pandemic, everybody's ordering online and through the already Amazon. So if you have your neighbor watch your packages, or neighbor pick up your package if you're not at home, and stuff like that. So knowing when and how to make the right call, calling your neighbor, calling the bylaw, calling the Ottawa Police, explaining to the neighbors, explaining neighbors of what's the right call and who to call. Next one, please. Next slide, please. So what is the neighborhood watch? It's basically an association of residents bonded and working together to reduce and prevent the crime within their community. It's a neighborhood-driven program. So basically, it is a support and guided by the Ottawa Police, mostly supported, guided by a community policing office, community policing office, and the community policing officer. It's about at the end, when it comes down to it, it's a program that's run by members of the community, and it is a program that is with the support and guidance from the Ottawa Police. For example, Ottawa Police will help with a community police officer. We help with trying to a certain area. Maybe if there's a less light, try to inform the neighborhood. Maybe to get get back to the city and tell them maybe that certain parts of the park would get more light. So it means that at the same time means that there's a less opportunity for less opportunity for crime and less opportunity at that. Next slide, please. So it can operate at any level of the community. So basically, it can operate. We have a neighborhood. The neighborhood that operate at the individual dwelling. For example, the single house homes. We have the ones that operate cooperative housing, and then the great example would be foster farm community at Ottawa, that they have their own neighborhood watch. And then other day I attended their meeting, and they were talking about getting back to Ottawa housing for a certain area. They have the certain area of the park. It's not lighted enough, then the people are congregating, and they're trying to get Ottawa housing to install more lights, to patrol more, to get to show presence, to reduce the crime at that. Ownership and rental, it could be a street. The Ottawa neighborhood watch, at some could be just street, the neighborhood getting together. The neighborhood getting together and just watching after each other and watching their street. Next one, please. Membership. So membership, it's basically, as I said, making your residents, it watches about making your residents less target, being alert to suspicious activities, and making the right call. Membership in Watch is not about being a busybody. being a vigilant, being a street patrol, costing a membership time or money. It's as basically, it's as watching your neighbor, as I said before, picking up your neighbor's package so that package doesn't get stolen. Watching your neighbor house, if your neighborhood is at a vacation and you know neighbor is at a vacation. Costing doesn't this it's something that doesn't cost money and doesn't cost much time. So just a simple watching what's around you and your neighbor, making the right call if you see that somebody's is trespassing at your neighbor and you know neighbors at a vacation. Basically just calling the police, making sure that your neighbor knows what's going on, and then it's just being a good neighbor. It's basically what the neighborhood watch is all about. Next slide, please. How to start? So the other question that we get a lot, it's how to start a watch. There's a level of interest. It's like a level of interest, chronic crime community. Do neighbors share the same concern? Is there a leader or coordinator? If there is, then you can contact your local CPC. That's a community policing in the West End. That for the area we're talking now would be the West Division CPC. And then at that time, the local community police officer will provide you with the guidance and will provide you with how to create and how to start a neighborhood watch. Next slide, please. So Ottawa community policing. So that's just the information on where the Ottawa community policing centers are. These are community. These are for, so in the West Division, there's a Barhaven and a Greenbank. It's a Greenbank. It's actually at Greenbank, an Ottawa Police Greenbank station. Bayshore, there's a one at the Bayshore at the 90 and Woodridge Crescent in a community center. There's a one in Canada at the police station, one in Manitouk and the West Carleton. The Central Division have the Lower Town, they have in Vanier and Wellington, and East Division has it in Orleans, Seville, Metcalfe, rural South Ottawa. I have talking specific for this situation. We're talking that it would be either Bayshore or the Greenbank. Bayshore or the Greenbank. So if the community decided, if there's a leader and they decided they wanted to create a neighborhood watch, they should contact the local community police officer, and he will kickstart them and help them create a neighborhood watch. Next, please. Watch coordinator does this. So at this step, establish boundaries and canvassing. So it's basically, so who wants to participate. So if there's a leader decided, there's a neighborhood, there's a leader, there's the canvas around who wants to be, who wants to support, who wants to be a watch coordinator, designate OPS volunteers, support as required. Ottawa Police Service as a volunteers that will be able to support and to help with creating a neighborhood watch. The canvas team, they can collect neighborhood watch registration form, neighborhood watch registration form are available from a local community police center, so they can hold a meeting and finalize membership, obtain signage if applicable. The signage, this area is being watched by the neighborhood. But it's by the neighborhood. Usually it says here, it's usually if there's a 15+1, the signage could be obtained. Next, please. Watch coordinator. So once you have a neighborhood watch and everything, watch coordinator. So the watch coordinator responsible for operation of the entire watch. Then we have a block captains responsible for monitoring a given set of homes. Then we have a watch members responsible for their own neighbors' interest. Watch coordinator would be the person who actually oversee the entire organizations. This will go more. This presentation, it's just a base presentation, but once if the neighbors get together and decided to create a neighborhood watch, the community police officer would attend those meetings, and then we'll explain in details on how to create, provide information, provide the time file, provide everything that's needed to and help them create a watch coordinator, block captains, and watch member, and everything would be how to do it, where to do it, and how is it done. So block captain, for example, if you have one neighborhood, then you have to split that neighborhood in a number of the sets, homes, and areas, and that would be a block captain for that area, and that block captain would have a certain amount of watch members, and the watch members would watch for the neighbor interests. So it could be divided by the streets, it could be divided by however they decided that's easier, and whatever the people are, and how would be easier for them to actually watch for their neighbors, watch for their neighbors' home, and take it from there. Next, please. Managing, engaging the community and the public. So it's when it comes down to neighborhood watch, it's not just the structure. Then you have to engage the community and the public. Neighborhood watch usually will get you. They organize and will help with the community policing. Community policing center will organize community events, and that will strengthen the watch and helps the watch grow. Get involved the other neighbors that were not involved before, and just to create more members to watch. They communicate with members, they communicate their neighbors, all the group members. They could create an email, a separate email, or the one email. They communicate with each other, so they have some kind of communication. Social media, some groups decide to create now these days in social media that they decide to create a Facebook groups on Facebook, and that way actually communicate with each other, to post the problems, to post what they're doing, so the other members of the neighborhood watch can see it. Maintain the current membership list. As we know, people move, people find to sell the homes and move to another area. So so members of that group that create and then maintain the current list. Remove members, same of the Facebook, same of the social media or the emails. So they always know how many people it's actually involved in that neighborhood watch at that time, and so there's no confusion on who's doing what. Next, please. Managed by the coordinator. Obviously, Saf will talk about it already. It's managed by a coordinator. The following information: established distribution through email. So the crime alerts, events, street parties, meetings, other engagement, watch alerts, and memorandums. So those are managed by the coordinator. Next one, please. To have a signage within the watch boundaries. Enrollment needs to be opted. That's so 50+1 is required. Once the 50+1 is reached, the sign is made to the city of Ottawa through Ottawa Police Service. These are requirements. The sign will be removed. These are requirements by the city of Ottawa and regulated by bylaws. So they have to be, it has to be 50+1, and if they if there's no more neighborhood watch, it would be removed as well. Next, please. So now to talk to how to ways to report the crime. So neighborhood watch, not just the neighborhood, but anybody else that to report the crime to the police. So there's Ottawa Police, there are 3 ways to report the crime to the police. The first way is to call 911, crime in progress, and a life-threatening emergency, violent crime or property crime in progress, or suspect for seeing flee, description, loss, direction of travel. So violent crime, if you actually witness to the violent crime and the violent crime is in progress, and the suspect is seen fleeing, and you know the last direction of the suspect, please call 911 and provide all the information to the dispatcher that you have at that time. There's evidence at the scene of the crime, mostly sexual assault. Those are the nine that would be considered a 911 call as well. Car accident with injuries. If there's a collision, a car collision on the street, and then and you know that the person is actually asking for help and they've been injured, so that it's a 911 call. Dangerous or impaired driving, and you're following or just witness and have the description or last direction of travel, fire or medical emergency. Those are the ones that would be called 911 calls, and they just so simple say that for crime in progress and life-threatening emergency. Next one, please. Non-emergency crimes, so that the crime, some incidents require an officer in person, but then they are non-emergency crimes. While other report can be taken over the phone and after the fact. So the police, Ottawa Police, Ottawa Police has a police reporting unit for those that don't require for officer to attend. So alcohol, drug abuse, drug use in the public, for example, youth congregating, drinking in the park. Police reporting unit, suspicion, activity or vehicle, any damage to house, yard or vehicle not in progress, dispute for record purposes, neighbor, stalking, civil, when fear exists. Next, please. There's a 3-way to report Ottawa Police. It's actually there's a way to report online reporting. Online reporting with Ottawa Police is theft and theft from a vehicle. Only these are they could be only reported from online reporting: theft and theft from a vehicle, assault, mischief, damage to property, traffic complaints, drug fraud complaints, and hate motivated incidents. Those are the online reporting. Ottawa Police has an option to either call or to do online reporting of the crime. Next, please. Crime Stoppers, it's a simple, those are strictly anonymous. Those people that would not like to be named, they don't like to call the Ottawa Police directly, and they would like to stay anonymous. There's always an option to call the Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers is a great option for youth, which I'm gonna be turning on next after this, because they don't want to be involved, but at the same time they do want to report the crime and they know something is going on. They can always call the Crime Stoppers. They can go online or they can call, and then those tips will be passed on to Ottawa Police. Next. Any questions?
I wanted to indicate that about 15 years ago, we instituted a major neighborhood watch in Morrison Gardens up near Leslie Park. And at that time, Morrison Gardens was the 3rd most crime-ridden area across the whole city. And within 10 years, it had fallen way out of the top 20. It's not even in the top 20 anymore. And I remember at the beginning, there were people afraid to take part in it because they're afraid of what the bad guys would do to them if they found out there was a neighborhood watch happening. Well, the first thing is when the sign went up, that brought a chill into the area. And it turns out the so-called bad guys were more afraid of the sign than anyone else was. And there were never any repercussions against people who became members of the neighborhood watch. It just succeeded a little bit by little bit at the start and then quite a bit later on. And I know right now my wife is a block captain in a neighborhood watch, and things are going pretty well here.
So any questions?
We do have a question in the chat. How do we
Um,
report cats being abused?
So the cats being abused, they could be reported to Ottawa Police, and they're calling Ottawa Police and non-emergency line. And if there's something that's happening again, that could be a report to Ottawa Police, and Ottawa Police, the appropriate unit with Ottawa Police would deal with it.
Okay. Now, what kind of red flags should we be looking for? For example, property damage, that kind of thing. Like as a neighbor who just happens to be walking by and you see something, not 100% sure, but at what point would it be prudent to be calling a report in?
So first, so for the property damage, if you've seen the window that has been broken or something like that, is that what you're talking about? Maybe that would be an example.
Yes, but I'm thinking more along the behaviors that would be evident before that point, before a window gets broken.
So if you're seeing a suspicious, behavior that's happening in front of the house, and you know that's not your neighbor, that would be you can always call the Ottawa Police and report it. But that would be one of the play. That would be one. If you're not sure what's going on, you can always call and report it to Ottawa Police, and Ottawa Police will send the officers to check and to see if there's anything suspicious happening at that place at that time.
If I could just add to that, that's exactly one of the benefits and assets of the neighborhood watch program specifically. If you're at that level with your neighbor where you're there's comings and goings and really who is, I guess, expected to be around the home, like in and out of the residence, and if you happen to see people that are not, or you don't believe are those people that should be in and around that residence, especially if they seem to be lurking or peering into windows, that is definitely suspicious, and that is definitely warrant of a call to the police. Even if we we just check it out. And like I said, that's sort of one of the it is one of the benefits of a strong neighborhood watch program, where just knowing your neighbor and knowing your neighbor's routines and the cars they drive and sort of the time of day they're in and out of the home. So
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Now, what would you say to those who may be inclined to stop the person and asking them questions? Would that be a wise decision, or would it just be one of those things that is best left to the professionals?
I wouldn't suggest anybody stopping anybody and asking a questions at the same time, because you never know who you're dealing with if you don't know if it's your neighbor or not. But if you know your neighbor and you know that somebody's at the house or the backyard or the front of the house, front yard, and you know that's not your neighbor and it does look suspicious, I would suggest you call the Ottawa Police, and then Ottawa Police will attend and they will investigate and determine if it is suspicious or not at the time. I wouldn't suggest you approaching anybody and asking.
So that I just want to add to that, Bernard. That's great advice, Bernard, to the the person asking the question, I don't see your name pop up there. I'm sorry, but yeah, I mean, it's much more impactful and safe and a benefit to the police if that person is spending more time, taking down a description of the person or persons, writing down a plate of a vehicle that might be used, as opposed to approaching. I would certainly not encourage or ask or expect anyone to approach individuals they believe that might be involved in a crime or a crime in progress.
Okay, that's great. Lisa.
So I just have a question. There's a Craig Elliott that's asking, two panelists that's asking you questions. And so how is it, how involved is it to set up a neighborhood watch? What kind of effort is involved, and how many street reps are required to meet? There's no minimum requirement to these streets, but is it how difficult? It's depends on how many neighbors actually want to participate. It's Greg. It's hard to answer because that's kind of question, but I will try my best. There's no minimum criteria. Neighbors getting together and neighbors watching their houses, and neighbors creating a neighborhood watch, putting up the signs, making sure that they know everything that's going on, suspicious going on in their community, and then at the same time reporting those suspicious incidents to the police. It's basically an idea behind of neighborhood watch. So as I said before, if you know your neighbors on a vacation and there's something going on in your neighborhood in your neighborhood backyard, and you know that your neighbor it's not there and there's nobody supposed to be there, that's one of the things they're calling Ottawa police reporting, is so that we can actually investigate and see if there's anything suspicious going on.
Okay, we have another one here asking, I'm in Qualicum and there's a sign on CU for neighborhood watch. Does that mean that there's one already in place?
I'm sorry, I didn't. Can you repeat the question, sir? Sorry.
Okay, so on CU in Qualicum Graham Park, there is a sign for neighborhood watch. The question is does that mean there's one already in place?
Possibly, yes. There's one already in place. So I don't have a list in front of me. So that could be something that your community police officer who's on a vacation this week would be able to answer, because he would have a list of neighborhood watches and who's in charge of it.
Okay, and we have another saying that they're watchful and we need more police presence. How do we go about advocating for that?
So the police presence, there's always police present in the neighborhood. We have a neighborhood officers. We do have a regular patrol. Neighbor officers are always on the go, and they're always in the neighborhood. Sometimes even if you don't see them, we are always in the neighborhood, and we are always looking.
Perfect. What is the response time of police once a call is made?
So
Maybe Brad can help you out that one.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, folks, it really does depend on the priority level that is awarded to or assigned to that call. And that, of course, depends on the context and the information that is provided on the call. So, I mean, obviously, if there's someone's life is in danger, that is in whatever shape or form, that would be classified as a priority one call. And I don't have the estimated times for response for each priority one through, I believe it is 7, and I sit to be connected, Bernard. But it is at the highest priority. Of course, it's minutes, depending on location and things like that. It could be several minutes to hours, depending on again that level of priority that is awarded to that particular call. So a very low priority call that essentially might need just simply a police report done, a police response first, but then a police report to follow. May take several minutes, if not several hours.
Yeah.
So it does really depend on the type of call and the information that's being provided to the police service.
It's really hard to give an example of what kind of call would be considered priority call, what kind of call would not be considered priority call, because as the inspector says, it really depends on what kind of information you're providing to the Ottawa police and then what's actually happening at the moment. So it's really hard to know how long would take for the other to respond.
Okay, we have one saying that areas of concern feel less likely to engage in neighborhood watch. Any suggestions? More like areas of concern might be less likely to have a bunch of people wanting to form a neighborhood watch and put themselves out there.
So that's like talk to your neighbor, encourage your neighbors to start participating. Talk to your community police officer who will help you set up one, and just help and engage. Try to engage into your community. Try to create the events. Try to get the people to participate through the events, through the community. Talk to your neighbors, and that way, just try to convince the people to start engaging into your neighborhood watch.
And we found that it helps to tell people that the person reporting, like the member of Neighborhood Watch who reports, that identity is not shared with the person that is being investigated. So that remains anonymous at that time. So I know a lot of them fear there are going to be reprisals from the people who are having their improper business being interrupted. And but there can't be reprisals because they won't be told who it was.
So
in Morrison
next,
Gardens, though, it really worked, and people were afraid of doing that, and they decided to do it anyway, and it really worked.
All right. Next up, we've got what kind of training is provided for a community in having a neighborhood watch? Is there a master public list of neighborhood watches active in College Ward? And does neighborhood watch extend to persistent traffic vehicular violations, speeding, blowing stop signs, braking, and braking no turn violations?
For traffic informations, that I would suggest that they start submitting reports online. If there's a traffic violations and problems in their community about the traffic, try to submitting informations online, and then those information will be processed to the traffic unit, and a traffic unit would get out and to try to deal with the problem areas. If there's a master list, there's a list of the neighborhood watches. Yes, there's a list in order. The list has been updated. It's been updated. Whatever that neighborhood watch comes, new neighborhood watch, whatever the other ones, they go away. So that, but the master list doesn't really have, like they have coordinators' names and stuff, but doesn't have that much information on well, they have a meetings minutes and what we talk to, the problems they have. Those informations, those informations would be in it. Yes. And then training. So your community police officers, as I said before, your community police officer will provide all the informations, will provide you with the training and everything, and how to create a neighborhood watch, and how to sustain your neighborhood watch, and how to get more people to join your neighborhood watch. That your community police officer could help you with that.
We've got a few questions regarding trespassing. So there's one here. My neighbor had a young guy in their back garden looking into their window. They went out and confronted him. I was just trying to see the time on your clock in there. So they got a very good picture of the person and tried to give it to the police. Apparently the response was that he didn't commit any crime, that there was nothing they could do. How do we escalate past this?
So I cannot. I don't know what happened in that particular situation. So I'm not. I can't really talk about what happened in that particular situation, or why did they get why this happened this way. But the trespass is a provincial offense, and the trespass would be investigated by the Ottawa police as a trespass. If it's just a trespass, if somebody's looking through the window, and if they do have a pictures of it, they can always submit report themselves, and then they would be investigated.
Yeah, so I want to add to that, Bernard. So Mr. McNamara, that is worthy of, at the very least, a report to the police. And again, it sounds like just a good neighbor looking out for another neighbor. If you see somebody in your neighbor's backyard that you truly believe doesn't belong to the residence, not part of the family, if for whatever reason, then at the very least, and the person's up to some suspicious activity, that should be reported to the police. This person might be doing this all over that neighborhood, or in different parts of the neighborhood across the city, and perhaps may have committed crimes in other areas of the city, doing exactly what he or she was about to do at that particular time. So at the very least, it's an information report for us, so that if we do get another call, whether it be in that area or surrounding area, and we start to see a similar description, then we've got a person that is up to no good, in that neighborhood. So I'm surprised that we weren't at least guided to an online report or a report through a non-emergency number. So I would encourage you to call either through online or whatever's easier, through online or the non-emergency, to have a police report filed, especially with that picture and description and any information you can give around the suspicious activity. And
then I'll just start with that. Please report any suspicious activities in your neighborhood, because that way, with Ottawa police, we can collect more information. If we have more information, if that person is committing another crime, for example, somebody's talking here, and a child is talking about about a break and enter, and then he had a backpack. It's like those information that we actually need. Those are information that we actually can connect maybe to another break and enter, and then that way we can be our investigators will be able to investigate even further.
Yeah, just to your follow-up, Mr. McNamara, that is exactly the information a caller needs to provide to the police at that time. We will respond. We should be responding to those types of incidents. Perhaps that person, when we get there, may have some sort of a legitimate excuse, lost, whatever the case may be. But in this, from what I'm reading here, it doesn't sound like that's the case. So I encourage you to follow up with us and have that reported. This is very similar to the traffic piece as well. I mean, if you're observing as residents a particular intersection that is being just smoked with whatever, running red lights, not turning on a sign they're not supposed to be, the more our traffic section specifically, the more reports that we receive or complaints about a specific area, as an intelligence-led or evidence-based agency that deploys its resources based on that information, the more we get a particular area of concern notified or brought to our attention, the more of a priority resources are put on that particular area to go and enforce, educate, prevent, intervene, whatever is needed.
So for the map, somebody's asking for the map. If they can see the map, you actually can see the map in Ottawa Police.ca. If you go to ottawapolice.ca, you can actually see the map of crime, and you can see the map of particularly in your ward.
And for all the, I'm seeing a number of questions about police stats, data and stats. So as Councillor Shirelli knows, we're about to release our annual crime trends and crime data citywide and by ward, by sector. So that is coming soon. I think within the next month or so. I do sit to be corrected, but stay tuned. You will have access to that. Everyone will have access to that information, either through your counselor's office or through the ottawapolice.ca website.
But to the answer, if I could just jump in to answer that particular question to the break-ins in College Ward, having seen some of the past data, I haven't looked at it for the past week, but break-ins are down citywide, and we can tell you it's because people are home, and that includes College Ward. More people are home, probably similar type of incident that was just described. People are home, people are confronting others. So we do see when that data does come out, as Ken was talking about, you'll be able to see that the break-ins for 2021, and that trend started in 2020 when things changed with the pandemic restrictions. And as you see, break-ins are down citywide.
Okay, Inspector Cartwright, you've already answered this. So whether there has been an increase in break-ins in College Ward, and you're saying that break-ins are down citywide, including in College Ward. We've got someone asking if they can access police data and stats somehow.
So, cost.
I'm just, is there specific data or data stats that person is looking for? I'm not, maybe if they could.
I can jump on that quickly. I can't answer the question directly because really we have the data, we share the data regularly, but having a portal where people can access any type of crime stats data in regards to other police is something that is in development right now. So that's something we hopefully see in the future, but right now our analytical component of the Ottawa Police is actually looking at that. And that's something that initially came as a request to get more up-to-date data when it comes to shooting and the violent crimes in the city. But that's something, it will start as a small pilot, and then it will, if successful, expand to include everything. Because our intent is to arm the public, arm the community with as much information as possible. But that portal right now, as of today, is not operational.
Inspector Cartwright, we've got questions regarding where the guns are coming from. Are gangs just driving around shooting each other, or does Bel Air specifically have a problem?
Okay, I think that means it's my turn now. Thank you very much. I see Ken smiling. Bernard, amazing job. Thank you very much. When it comes to firearms, it seems like the name of Carl Cartwright just comes hand in hand in the city of Ottawa. And why is that? It's because for the past 3 years, I've happened to be in charge of the Guns and Gangs unit. About a month ago, I presented the Police Services Board. And sorry, there's no presentation. I'm not going to bore you with numbers. It's coming right on top of my head. We have over 30,000 legally registered firearms in Ottawa. Actually around 27, almost 28,000 in Ottawa, and the rest come from the Gatineau side. But I really consider us one city, one region. So really in my world, we deal with, that's how you need to realize. But also come to realize that we have extremely strict gun legislation in Canada. So the weapons that police officers on the road, whether it's NRTs, whether it's patrol officers, or whether they're investigators, the weapons that they're seizing, they're not generally part of that 30,000 legally registered firearms. The statistics is always around 75-25 or 80-20. And I say this meaning that the illegally seized firearms that we see come from across the border. We have a very different situation here in Canada. We happen to have the largest, extremely porous border with another nation that has the most firearms per capita than almost any nation, including those that are currently at war. Currently in the States, you can go to certain states and to get a vaccine, you can get your shotgun. That is a different mentality. So we have those weapons. Firearm trafficking is a very lucrative business. You can purchase a $300 firearm in the United States, and it will sell for 10 times that on the streets of Ottawa, streets of Toronto, in Niagara, in North Bay. So most of the illegal firearms that are used in the shootings in Ottawa are illegal. They come from mostly outside our borders, and they are rented. They don't even have to be purchased. If somebody cannot buy a firearm on the streets of Ottawa, which is quite easy to do, they may rent it for somebody that they know has a firearm. Now we've seen an increase in gun violence in 2021 in comparison to 2020. But let me preface that. People are continually asked, why is that? Why is that? When you're in the middle of a situation, it's very hard to determine what's happened. You can't do the analysis. What we had last year, we had an extreme drop. We only had 45 shootings last year, which was, since we started keeping our statistics in the city of Ottawa, we've never had numbers that low. We were reaching 78, getting close to 80. I imagine at the pace that we're going this year, with all our efforts, we will maintain on the same numbers that we had previously. What we need to look at, did COVID, a lot of people ask this question, did COVID pandemic have something to do with it? Well, I'm sure COVID has impacted all our lives. It is relatively a good assumption to assume it also impacted the lives of those others who choose to live a different lifestyle. When I say different lifestyle, this is criminal lifestyle. There's no problem in the college ward per se. There's a problem in Ottawa. There's a problem in Toronto. There's a problem in North Bay and Hamilton. What we deem to be street level violence, street gangs, has evolved. Violence, the face of violence hasn't changed. It's evolved because now we have the firearm, where 30 years ago, when Ken and I were just thinking of becoming police officers and finally becoming police officers, the most we would encounter in the streets of Ottawa, or whether it was in the PN or in Gloucester, was edge weapons. Knives were proliferating in all our streets. But now we have for the firearm, and the firearm creates a higher level of danger. And that is the reality that we currently have now in the streets. Every week, there's an illegal firearm seized by a police officer in the city of Ottawa. We are now almost around 50 firearms have been seized by officers at all levels of this organization. Last year, we had the highest number, well over 100 and 111 firearms were seized. What that means, it doesn't mean that the police are doing an amazing job. We are doing a good job. What it means that there are more firearms out there. That's a reality. Who's involved in the firearm-related deaths and incidents? Young men, predominantly young men. I'm not saying there are not females involved. Yes, there are. But the problem is about young men who have access to firearms, less impulse control. Lord knows when I was a teenager or a young man in my 20s, I didn't have the impulse control I do now. But when you add a firearm and you add any other type of criminal activity to it, is what we're seeing here in the country. We're seeing this everywhere. We're seeing it in Toronto. But what we're seeing when the issue of gangs, gangs is not what it used to be. That meaning almost needs to change. We have organized crime groups, whether they're extremely well organized, whether they're old, whether they're young, who are engaging in activities to enrich themselves through criminal activity. And now they have those access to firearms. What happens, I keep mentioning the North, what happens in another jurisdiction now matters to the Ottawa police officer as much as something that happens downtown on Gloucester. It is that important because what we see now in the level of street level activity, what the province of Ontario is calling gang sprawl. I mentioned this a month ago at the board meeting. Gang sprawl, it's the same term as urban sprawl. We have individuals who are moving. They are constantly moving. We see a rise in drive-by shootings because they're using their vehicles. And the shooting itself has no relation to almost to the location. That does not go for 100% of cases, but most of the majority of cases, and I've looked at the map, and if I had the map to show you, see that the incidents in Ottawa are fairly spread all over the city. Yes, they concentrate on the higher population areas, as always, because that's where people congregate. And that's where we have put our strategies together, Ken's team and my team. I have the investigative side of the house. Ken has the community officers, where we've taken the the guns and gangs strategy from the province and actually partitioned the resources, where Ken puts a lot of effort on the prevention, okay, and the community aspect, and the investigators under my command are left primarily deal with the suppression and enforcement strategies. So it's a multi-pronged approach that we've taken to a multi-pronged problem, okay? We do, violence is there, but violence has always been here in our city. Just the means by way the violence is now being perpetrated has a bit an urgency to it because it involves the firearms. So we at the Ottawa Police, we do have a strategy and we do have operations to combat the trafficking of firearms. But having said that, trafficking of firearms is a federal offense. That belongs to the feds. It's with the RCMP. So we work very closely with them. We work with the Ontario Provincial Police. They have a provincial weapons enforcement unit, which we have officers assigned to, always attempting to identify those particular crime groups, whether it's street level or middle level or higher, what we tend to believe as the traditional organized crime folks that are benefiting from the sale of either narcotics or firearms, and target them. By focusing on them and also focusing on the street strategy and having Ken neighborhood resource teams as partners, we attempt to actually take those pillars of suppression enforcement and able to stop the level of violence. Right now, the city of Ottawa is still one of the largest cities per capita in North America. But yes, there's no doubt 2020 has taken a turn from 2021. Sorry, 2021 has taken a turn versus 2020. I can keep speaking about statistics, but I'm going to quickly take a look at the chat, see if there are any quick questions I can address, or maybe Rachel, you spotted something for me. I don't see any. Either I've bored everybody or
No, actually, Sean.
I did really well.
Yeah, you did really well, and we appreciate that. Oh, darn,
I see a question. What is the current penalty for discharging a firearm within the city? There's a maximum and there's a minimum. It depends. I know you're going to hate that. We always say it depends. It depends on the situation. It depends on the individual. It depends on the age group. Our judges have mandate to follow certain guidelines according to criminal code, anywhere for 5 years. I don't have it in front of me, but it could go for 5 years. But if you discharge a firearm, it's an unintentional discharge in the city of Ottawa where you, and that means there is no malice or criminal intent and there was no injuries, you're not going to go to jail. Okay, if you're stopped and you attempt a robbery at a Max Milk or a 7-Eleven, you discharge a firearm, and even though you didn't hit somebody, that is an entirely different case. So the judge would look at the severity of it, will look at the individual themselves, the harm to the community, any past history, and that will dictate. If you happen to be a hunter and you decide to discharge your firearm on land you should not be in, because you thought, you could beat the hunting season by a week, that again has different parameters. Where I very much in the country of Canada, you're not going to go to jail for that. You may pay a fine or something like that. So it's very different. you have to understand, we also have a different term of what a shooting is. And it's much different, but city to city, but we try to have the same general concept. In the United States, they have a different concept. Most jurisdictions in the US, unless you actually shot somebody, it's not considered a shooting. But truly, when we were looking at shooting in the city of Ottawa, and I have a sheet from my presentation definition for us here. So I say that this year we've had 44 shootings to date. Is any incident where a firearm has been discharged illegally, regardless of injury to persons or damage to property? Basically, if it was a real firearm, it was used, it's within the boundaries of our jurisdiction, we count it. I've heard some comments in media asking, why do you do that? You're inflating your numbers. No, because it's very important for the Ottawa Police and for the community to know what's happening. So just because a firearm is discharged, all we see is the remnants of a casing that has a lot of intelligence information to it that could lead Ken to take some proactive action with his team. It could also lend my investigative teams, okay, to associate that caliber of weapon, that to something else. And it's also an indicator of the presence of a firearm that was illegally used. And generally, when a firearm is illegally used, generally that firearm will be illegally gained. So that's very valuable information for us. So we count all of them. So it doesn't mean that, oh my goodness, 44 people were shot in the city. No, actually it does not. We had less than half of that were actual injuries. The other ones could be incidents reported to us where we have located evidence of a shooting. Now we have almost triple that number of reported incidents to us where people say, I've heard a shot fired. We respond, police will respond, but most of those cases, it could have been a car backfiring, could have been anything else. We've either eliminated that as a criminal incident or we've had no evidence of such an incident happening. Could City of Ottawa Council designate Ottawa as a firearm? I assume you mean free jurisdiction. I'm not a councillor. The city council can choose to make it, or councillors can choose to make any motion they wish. But once again, remember what I mentioned, that what we're looking at is we have thousands upon thousands of citizens in the city of Ottawa who are lawful, who have weapons lawfully. We need to consider what impact that would have on those, because they're not criminals, and nor do we have any evidence really to suggest that the violence that we see on our streets are related to any of those legally owned firearms. Firearms that are usually used in Canada illegally, that we do seize, that data which I gave you of 80-20 switches from handguns to long guns, because we have extremely a lot of long guns in Canada, so we will see more long guns seized. But my concern truly is on handguns. If I could eliminate illegal handguns, we would never be talking about shootings. Okay, maybe that would evolve. Violence would still exist. Great Britain's a great example. Almost no firearms illegally, but their edge weapon violence is out of control. So we have to tackle the issue of the violence, the reason for the violence, but we also have to tackle the issue of the means of the violence. And that's where we start speaking about the illegal access of firearms. How many unintended victims have been injured in firearm activity this year? I will not answer that question directly, because that word unintended could mean a number of different things, and also impacts current active investigations. I don't want to label individuals here, and by doing so, I'd say, okay, there are so many innocent people, and then these other individuals that were shot actually deserve to be shot. That's not my intent. We have a lot of active investigations. The motto of the Guns and Gangs unit and the motto of the homicide unit under my leadership is that everyone matters or no one matters. To me, it doesn't matter. Okay, if somebody's injured, somebody has been killed, we put all our efforts to solve that crime. So that's my answer to that question.
I'd like to ask also about stabbings in our ward. We had one recently near Algonquin College, and we've had some, in the last few years, both in the Morrison Gardens area and the Bell's Corners areas of our ward. Anything you can give us in terms of information about those and what people should worry about?
Chantal, sorry, I don't have the exact stats on the stabbings. I was really focusing on the shootings, and a colleague of mine handles that. But when we look at stabbings, the root causes are the exact same as when we start speaking about what leads to violence when it comes to firearms. There's a different component. Safety issues, yes. The one thing you have, I must inform you, a knife is a knife is a knife. That's something I've learned long ago in police college. So, okay, what is it? It's a knife. Is a knife illegal? No, it is not. So if somebody actually has a knife, that's not illegal. Generally, if somebody has a firearm on them, I can guarantee you, there's very few carry permits. We have so many rules and regulations federally by the province that even myself, when I carry my own firearm, I happen to carry it at home or in my through my car. I have certain regulations I have to abide by. There's no such thing for a knife, but a knife can be a weapon just as quickly as a firearm, and a knife or any other edged weapon can be a weapon of opportunity, and that's just as dangerous. Actually, I would not want to be a victim of a knife of any type. So I would consider that we as individuals and normal citizens in society, if you see something suspicious, if you see somebody still walking around with a large sword, something you need to call the police. But do not be surprised if the person had the weapon, the sword in the sheet. You may very well go into some cosplay or some silly thing that some people do out there. It doesn't mean that it's criminal. It's by way the person uses the knife. But we need to be careful when we deal with individuals. Many of our robberies are committed with knives. Just as many, if not more. I don't have the statistics, but it's not unlikely to see somebody commit a crime with a knife. So as citizens, we need to exercise our normal due diligence and caution when we see somebody with a knife.
Carl, I was reading the next one there. If you want, I can take a stab at at Faye's with the cats.
Okay.
So Faye, there were, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but there were a number of incidents recently over the last month and a half to two months where a number of cats were found either deceased, injured, maimed, mutilated in some cases. And I'll tell you, obviously, when we first were made aware of those incidents, we were very concerned as a police service. Was it an individual or group of individuals that were doing this to the cats? And I'm not sure if it has reached you or not. But as part of that investigation, the coroner's office did get involved and conducted a number of autopsies on several of the cats, and it was medically proven, or I guess decided, that these cats were targeted by wildlife. So there were, there were no humans, there were no persons involved in here conducting any criminality towards these cats. So yeah, to answer your question, Faye, hopefully, yeah, of course, we take those types of incidents quite seriously, and they're investigated like any other matter that comes to our attention that deserves a criminal investigation or a police investigation to some degree. But we did have our medical experts come in and help us on all of those. And I'm not sure about what letters you're referring to, Faye. I'm sorry.
Neither do I.
I haven't been informed of any letters either.
I don't spend too much time on social media, Faye, but I do know that it was Edmonton, I do believe out west, that was facing something very similar where they had tripled the numbers that we had. They had an entire task force out west to try to solve this because it does become very concerning. But that was also proven to be a wild animal. And I can confirm, just because Inspector McGetrick is the one in charge of the investigative team that does that, and I happen to be one of his colleagues, is that he did provide me the report that the incidents in Ottawa were proven to be a wild animal. Not those injuries were not by a human being. And I can't attest to anything that was said on social media. I tend to stay out of that world as much as possible.
And I would just add that this is the first I'm hearing of any letters regarding this issue as well. Now, we have multiple communities in our ward. We do try to, monitor a little bit on the social media. However, a lot of us are doing so on our free time, which is because there's, we have 14 communities just in College Ward. Many of them have multiple social media outlets as well. So we do try to, be in those groups. However, it's impossible for us to monitor them 24/7. So I would recommend that if you do, come across something like that or this type of information, that it be reported to the police, or that the person who's received this letter be encouraged to report it to the police. Because, as much as we don't have the time to monitor everything that goes on in every single group in our ward on their social medias, I know that the Ottawa police also, can't have their eyes on every single social media group in this city as well. So it can be very difficult for those things, for us to know unless they're being reported.
Yeah, and it's more than just difficulty of resources. There are requirements under provincial law that if somebody submits complaints, they have to be saved and stored appropriately. And so if somebody just puts a tag up on Twitter, if we get in the business of answering Twitter with individual complaints, that means we have to start saving the messages and cataloging them. And that would just be impossible to do.
That's great points. No, does anybody else have any other questions regarding either the guns, the gun activity, or neighborhood watch at all?
Could we have an explanation of the guns and gangs strategy that was unrolled about 3 years ago and where we're sitting with that?
Sure, Rick. Actually, the timing is right. Crime Prevention Ottawa is just right now. I participate on that group with 21 other agencies. That strategy is being looked at right now, and NC is, because 2020 was the end of 3 years. Every 3 years, that strategy is being reanalyzed and looked at again to see its effectiveness. So we've just now, Rick, entered into these discussions to look at the successes and the missed opportunities, and see how we move forward, especially now that we've adopted the entire community safety and well-being framework. See, okay, how does that now fit the original strategy that we had before? It's how does that now fit onto the umbrella of community safety and well-being? So those discussions are just at the infancy and looking, but the 4 pillars, where Ottawa Police really owns the suppression mostly, not that it doesn't own any other pillar, but mostly the suppression enforcement is still there. We need to look at percentages. How much effort is being put at the prevention side of things? And that's where all our other partners are involved, everything from housing to the educational boards, and those conversations that are happening. How do we prevent people from even getting into the situation where they find themselves that violence and either being victims or perpetrators? How do we prevent that from happening? So those conversations are still happening. That report should be finalized, hopefully. But you know how paperwork goes. It's that report is just now being discussed and how we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any final questions before we wrap up for anyone?
I see one last question just popped up. It's not about weapons, but it is a very serious one. It is always a concern, regardless of when we are, what decade it is. The crimes that most concern me at this time are traffic related. Do you have any strategies here? Yes, we do. Our traffic experts are not here, but we've been conducting Project Noisemaker and other similar projects in the city, and that's been constant. COVID pandemic has not had any impact on our project. What we have seen during the COVID pandemic, yes, there have been less cars on the street, but the cars are going faster. The level of charges yeah, Project Noisemaker, perfect. But the level of speeding that's being spotted and being stopped in our streets, not only in Ottawa, but the province, is quite high. And as you recently saw, recent legislation, there's been a change, and in regards to the racing, I do believe, Kenny, is it the racing legislation now that the fines are even higher now because the province has realized people are going
Stunt driving, Carl.
Yeah, stunt driving. Yeah, so we are constantly on that. Traffic, I mean, doesn't matter what year I've been a police officer, traffic has always been the #1 concern and has always been the focus.
So we have a question as to what is Project Noisemaker?
Yeah, I can add a little bit to that, Chantal, for Marjorie. So Project Noisemaker is well, it's obviously the name of the focused or the increased traffic efforts. But these are the traffic officers, sometimes supported by frontline services, also supported by our neighborhood resource teams, but predominantly the traffic officers. And again, based on what we are hearing from the residents, the community members themselves on again, whatever major intersection or stop, it could be anything and everything traffic, folks. This team, this Project Noisemaker focus is going to all of those different spots and essentially enforcing those complaints or addressing, actioning all of those complaints. Project Noisemaker is just simply the name of the focused efforts, the focused traffic efforts.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I think that about wraps it up for tonight. I want to thank everyone for being here again. Thank you, Inspector Bryden, Inspector Cartwright, and Constable, Kovic. And just wanted to, thank you for taking the time to be here tonight and to talk to our communities.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure.
And if anyone is interested in Neighborhood Watch, don't hesitate to reach out to our office and we can put you in touch with the neighborhood police officer as well, and get you more information. and get these things started. We will reach out to our community associations with additional information on those as well. Have a great night, everyone.
Take care, everybody. Be safe.